tonight is the night of $10 words. And I don't know if this is a $10 word, but an important word to me is perseverance. Perseverance means continuing in the face of delay or challenge. And I think of two things when I think of perseverance. I think of running, and I think of my grandfather. Now, I was a long-distance runner with asthma and shin splits.
Terrible.
Yes. So that meant running without hope of the finish line for a long period of time while my muscles were literally separating from my bone and me not being able to breathe. So every single race I ran, it ended with me on the ground sobbing in pain and gasping for air. So I knew perseverance in my body. I knew it. And like I said, the second thing I thought of when I thought of perseverance was my grandfather. Well, before I get to that, I think it's an appropriate analogy that running or exercise or journeys comes up in a lot of metaphors for life. Pilgrim's Progress, Lord of the Rings, even in Scripture, Timothy, it says, I have fought the good fight, I have run the race, I have kept the faith. And I can't think of a better analogy than running. But like I said, my grandfather, he was a World War II vet that beat polio with sheer will. He cured a slipped disc before there was surgery with it by doing calisthenic exercises every single day. I watched him do that while I grew up. And he walked everywhere he could help it. But what persevered in my memory was his love of the Scripture, his love of the Psalms. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He makes me down to lie in pastures green. He leadeth me the quiet waters by. He approached everything he did with a calm endurance and a confident acceptance. He was groundskeeper of an entire campground. He was a gardener and a carpenter, and maybe most of all, he showed his perseverance as a husband. My grandmother, well, a loving woman, was not somebody that you would describe as gentle or graceful. She showed her love in how clean her house was and in how forcefully she told me to clean my room. She was a lion of a woman. And when my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, my grandfather approached her disease the way he had approached everything else in his life, with peace and perseverance, sitting by her bedside and calling her sweetheart, wiping her meal from her face and reading to her. And one day when my family went to visit her, grandfather suggested we sing the 23rd Psalm at her bedside, a psalm we had all grown up singing. And as our voices raised around her bed, around this lion of a woman who was reduced to a mute and sobbing child, unable to speak or eat, she began to sing. And I remember in that moment thinking I could weep at her bedside, or I could sing with her for the last time. And so I sang. Yea, though I walk in death's dark vale, yet will I fear no ill, for thou art with me, and thy rod and staff become comfort still. At her funeral, my grandfather gave me and my brother scripture readings to read out loud. And after watching my grandmother diminish from this lion of a woman I knew and die over 4 years' time, it shouldn't have surprised me that it fell to me to read the passage. I have fought the good fight. I have run the race. I have kept the faith. And when I couldn't keep myself composed in front of all of our family, after her funeral, my grandfather put his hand on my shoulder and laughed and said, "I'm sorry, I realize that might have been a little difficult for you to say." In his same calm, peaceful, kind manner. Pneumonia and polio eventually reclaimed my grandfather's life. And when I visited him in the hospital, he told me, I'm ready to go, Joe." And when he died at 93, a man whose life I could only hope to emulate, a man who had fought the good fight and run the race and kept the faith. We didn't mourn him. Instead, we celebrated his life by singing the psalms that he loved so well. Goodness and mercy all my life shall surely follow me, and in God's house forevermore my dwelling place shall be.